The Wednesday evening started peaceful enough. I was sitting across from Joyce at this Brazilian steakhouse downtown, the kind of place where servers walk around with skewers of meat, and you flip a little card to green when you want more. We've been talking for about 40 minutes, comparing notes on what we'd discovered over the past few weeks. Joyce had ordered the full rodizio experience. I stuck with the salad bar and a couple cuts of picanha. The atmosphere was warm, almost festive, with the sound of sizzling meat and quiet conversations filling the space around us. "So your lawyer thinks it'll be straightforward?" Joyce asked, cutting into a piece of garlic steak. "Yeah, pretty much. No kids, no shared property. The apartment lease is in my name. She's got her car, I've got mine. It's about as clean as these things get." She nodded, taking a sip of her wine. "I wish mine was that simple. We've got the house, 2 cars, and his business to sort through. That's rough, but at least you've got solid evidence. Makes it harder for him to fight anything." "True. I just want it done, you know? All the lies, the sneaking around. I'm exhausted from it." I understood that feeling perfectly. The past month had been draining, playing it cool at home while knowing exactly what was happening behind my back. Every fake smile, every made-up excuse about working late or meeting friends. It all added up. We were discussing the timeline of when things would be finalized when I noticed movement near the entrance. The host was gesturing, looking confused, and there was a raised voice cutting through the ambient noise of the restaurant. Then I saw her. My wife came storming through the dining area like a hurricane, her face twisted in fury. She was scanning the room frantically until her eyes locked onto our table. The entire path she walked, people turned to look. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. "Are you kidding me right now?" she shouted, her voice echoing off the wooden beams and brick walls. "Who the hell is this?" Joyce's eyes went wide, her fork frozen halfway to her mouth. I stayed exactly where I was, calm, taking a slow sip of water before setting the glass down. My wife reached our table, her hands gripping the edge like she might flip it. Her face was flushed, breathing hard. "I cannot believe you. Out here on a date? After everything we've been through." The tables around us had gone completely silent. Even the servers had paused, uncertain whether to intervene. I leaned back in my chair, keeping my voice level. "You should probably lower your voice. People are trying to enjoy their dinner. Don't tell me to lower my voice. You're sitting here with another woman, and you're telling me to calm down." Joyce started to speak, but I raised a hand gently. "Actually, let me handle this." I looked up at my wife, meeting her eyes directly. "This is Joyce. Joyce, this is my wife. Or I should say, soon-to-be ex-wife." "Ex-wife." She laughed, but it came out harsh and bitter. "What are you talking about? Joyce's husband works in logistics, doesn't he?" I said, turning slightly toward Joyce. She nodded, still looking shell-shocked by the confrontation. I turned back to my wife. "Tall guy, drives a silver Nissan. Has that tattoo on his left forearm?" The color started draining from my wife's face. "Yeah, that's the guy you've been seeing for the past 4 months. Joyce here is his wife. We've been comparing notes. You could have heard a pin drop in that section of the restaurant." My wife's mouth opened, closed, then opened again. No words came out. "See, about 3 weeks ago, I found the messages on your laptop. All of them. The photos, the plans, the lies about where you were going. Everything." I kept my tone conversational, like I was discussing the weather. Instead of making a scene at home, I did some research. Found out who he was. Found out he was married, and reached out to Joyce. Joyce had recovered enough to add, "We've been coordinating, getting our evidence together, talking to lawyers, making sure everything was documented properly." My wife's eyes darted between us, panic starting to replace the anger. "This is insane. You set me up? You humiliated me like this." "I didn't set you up. You did this yourself. I just decided when and how you'd find out that I knew." I picked up my water glass again. "The divorce papers are already drawn up. They'll be served to you tomorrow morning. I suggest you get your own lawyer. You can't just, we can talk about this. We can work through it." "No, we can't. I'm done talking. I'm done with the lies. I'm done with you." She looked around desperately, as if someone in the restaurant might come to her defense. But people just stared, some with sympathy, most with judgment clearly written on their faces. "The apartment lease is in my name. You've got until Sunday to get your things out. After that, I'm changing the locks, and anything left goes to storage." "This is crazy. You're throwing away years together over you sleeping with someone else for months?" Over you lying to my face every single day? Yeah, I am. That's exactly what I'm doing. The confidence had completely left her now. She was shaking, tears starting to form. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. Call your sister. Call your parents. Hell, call him if you want. See if he's willing to leave his wife for you. I paused. Though from what Joyce told me, he's already trying to save his own marriage. Guess you weren't as special as he made you feel. That last part landed hard. She stumbled back a step, looking at Joyce with something between hatred and desperation. Joyce just shook her head. He told me everything yesterday. Said it was a mistake, that it didn't mean anything. So if you were thinking you two had a future, you might want to reconsider. My wife stood there for another moment, tears now running down her face, the entire restaurant watching her personal crisis unfold. Then she turned and practically ran toward the exit, knocking into a server's arm on the way out. The poor guy almost dropped his tray of drinks. The silence held for about 5 seconds after she left. Then slowly, conversations resumed. A few people at nearby tables nodded at me with approval. One older gentleman even gave me a subtle thumbs up. I turned back to Joyce, who was staring at me with a mix of shock and admiration. Well, that went about as expected. She let out a breath she'd been holding. You were so calm. I don't think I could have done that. Trust me, I've had 3 weeks to prepare for this moment. I've played it out in my head 100 times. A server approached cautiously. Is everything all right here? We're fine, I said, giving him an apologetic smile. Sorry for the disruption. Can we get the check when you have a chance? He nodded and hurried off. Joyce picked up her wine glass with a slightly shaking hand. So what happens now? Now? I go home, make sure everything valuable is secured, and wait for her to show up tomorrow. You go home and do whatever you need to do with your husband. And we both move forward. She smiled, a genuine one this time. You know, when you first contacted me, I thought you might be crazy, but you really had this all figured out. I just wanted her to understand that actions have consequences, that she couldn't lie and cheat and expect everything to be fine. I finished my water, and I wanted her to feel exactly what I felt when I found those messages. Betrayed, humiliated, and completely blindsided. The server returned with the check. I paid for both of us, left a generous tip as an apology for the scene, and we walked out together into the cool evening air. Thank you, Joyce said as we reached the parking area. For finding me, for doing this. I know it wasn't easy. You deserve to know, just like I did. We said our goodbyes, knowing we'd probably stay in touch as the divorces moved forward. Similar experiences create bonds, even temporary ones. As I drove home, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. No more pretending. No more wondering when she'd slip up and I'd catch her. It was all out in the open now. The hard part was behind me. Everything from here was just logistics and paperwork. When I pulled into the apartment parking garage, I sat in my car for a moment, staring at the concrete walls. Tomorrow would bring her reaction, probably more tears, maybe anger, definitely attempts to manipulate the situation. But I was ready. I'd been preparing for this since the moment I saw those messages. I got out of the car, locked it, and headed inside. My phone buzzed with a text from my lawyer confirming the papers would be served first thing in the morning. I responded with a thumbs up and pocketed the phone. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe properly. The weight I'd been carrying, knowing what she was doing while pretending everything was fine, was finally starting to lift. This was just the beginning of the process, but it was a beginning I was ready for. I unlocked the apartment door, stepped inside, and started preparing for whatever tomorrow would bring. 3 weeks earlier, I was sitting at my desk finishing up some project reports when my laptop decided to stop cooperating. The screen flickered twice, then went black. I tried restarting it, but nothing. The thing was 6 years old and had been showing signs of giving up for months. I needed to print out expense forms for work by the next morning, and my wife's laptop was sitting on the kitchen counter where she always left it. She was out, supposedly meeting her friend Scarlett for dinner and a movie. She'd been doing that a lot lately, these evening outings that stretched longer and longer. I opened her laptop, found the documents I'd emailed myself, and sent them to the printer in our home office. While waiting for them to print, a notification popped up in the corner of the screen. A messaging app one didn't recognize. The preview showed just enough to make me pause. Can't wait to see you Friday. Last weekend was incredible. The sender's name was just initials, TR. I stared at that notification for a solid minute, my brain trying to rationalize it. Maybe it was a friend. Maybe it was about some event or party. Maybe there was a perfectly innocent explanation. But my gut told me otherwise. I shouldn't have looked. I knew that even as my finger moved toward the trackpad. But I clicked on it anyway, and the messaging app opened to a conversation that made my stomach drop. Months of messages. Hundreds of them. Some were just casual conversation, but others were explicit, detailed, intimate. Photos I definitely wasn't supposed to see. Plans for hotel meetups. Complaints about their respective spouses, about me, about how they both felt trapped in marriages that had gone stale. I sat there reading through it all, feeling like I was watching my marriage disintegrate in front of me through a screen. Every message was another crack in the foundation, another lie revealed. The dinner with Scarlett 3 weeks ago? She'd been with him. The weekend she went to visit her cousin? Also him. The evening yoga classes she'd suddenly taken an interest in? You guessed it. The anger came first, hot and immediate. I wanted to throw the laptop across the room. I wanted to call her right then and scream every obscenity I could think of. But something stopped me. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was some part of my brain that knew acting impulsively would only make things worse. Instead, I started taking screenshots. Every message, every photo, every piece of evidence that proved what had been happening. I uploaded them to a cloud account she didn't have access to, then cleared the notification history so she wouldn't know I'd seen anything. The printer finished. I grabbed my documents, closed the laptop exactly as I'd found it, and went to sit on the couch in the living room. When she came home 2 hours later, I was watching television, looking completely normal. She kissed the top of my head, asked about my day, told me about the movie she'd supposedly just seen. I played along, asking questions about the plot, nodding at her descriptions. She was good at lying, disturbingly good. Her voice never wavered. Her expressions never slipped. If I hadn't seen those messages, I would have believed every word. That night, lying in bed next to her while she slept, I stared at the ceiling and tried to figure out what to do. Part of me wanted the confrontation right away, but another part, the part that was already planning and calculating, knew that rushing in emotional would be a mistake. The next morning, after she left for work, I went back to her laptop. I needed more information. I needed to know who this person was, what I was dealing with. It took some digging through the messages, but I found his full name eventually, Theodore Baker. He worked in logistics for a shipping company across town. He was 42, had been married for 15 years, and had 2 kids. 2 kids. This guy was risking his whole family for an affair with my wife. I found his social media profiles, his wife's name, Joyce, even saw photos of their family. They looked happy in the pictures, smiling at birthday parties and holiday gatherings. Just like the photos my wife and I had, the ones that showed a version of our life that apparently hadn't been accurate for months. The anger was still there, simmering under everything, but it was getting organized now. Focused. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was ready to do something about it. I contacted a lawyer that afternoon during my lunch break, explained the situation, showed him some of the evidence I collected. He was straightforward about the process, what I'd need, how long it would take. The consultation cost me $200, but it was worth it to understand exactly where I stood legally. Document everything, he told me. Dates, times, messages, photos. The more evidence you have, the cleaner this will be. I spent the next week doing exactly that. Every time she went out, I noted it. Every time she lied about where she'd been, I documented it. I checked our bank statements and found charges at hotels I'd never been to, restaurants we'd never visited together, even a weekend trip to a bed and breakfast 2 hours away that she'd told me was a work conference. The lies just kept piling up. But here's the thing that kept eating at me. Theodore's wife, Joyce. She had no idea. She was going about her life, trusting her husband, just like I'd been doing. And she deserved to know just as much as I deserved to know. I found her email through some creative searching online. It took me 2 days to figure out how to write the message. How do you tell a complete stranger that her husband is cheating? How do you prove it without sounding like some crazy person or someone trying to cause trouble? In the end, I kept it simple and direct. My name is Nathan. I don't know you, but I believe your husband Theodore has been having an affair with my wife for the past several months. I have evidence that I'm willing to share with you if you're interested in seeing it. I understand this is difficult to hear, and if you don't want to respond, I completely understand. But I felt you deserved to know. I attached a few screenshots, nothing too explicit, just enough to show that something was definitely going on. Then I hit send before I could second-guess myself. For 2 days, nothing happened. I started wondering if she'd blocked me, or if maybe she'd known all along and didn't care, or if the email had gone to spam. Then, on a Saturday morning while my wife was out doing her supposed grocery shopping, I got a response. Can we meet? I need to see everything. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop across town, somewhere neither of our spouses would randomly show up. I brought my laptop with all the evidence organized into folders by date. Joyce was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with her hands wrapped around a coffee cup like she was trying to absorb its warmth. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Thank you for coming, I said, sitting down across from her. She nodded, not quite making eye contact. Show me. I opened the laptop and turned it toward her. For the next 40 minutes, she scrolled through months of messages, her expression shifting between disbelief, anger, and something that looked like resignation. I knew something was off, she said quietly, staring at a particularly damning message. He started working late constantly, always had his phone face down, got defensive when I asked simple questions. Same with my wife. Suddenly, she had all these new friends and hobbies. Always busy, always somewhere else. Joyce looked up at me, and I saw the same anger in her eyes that I'd been feeling for weeks. What do we do about this? We have a few options. We could confront them separately, let them know we found out. We could ghost them and file for divorce without warning. Or, I paused, the idea forming as I spoke it. We could coordinate. Make sure they both get exposed at the same time, in a way that makes it impossible for them to lie or manipulate their way out of it. She leaned back in her chair, a slight smile appearing despite everything. You've been thinking about this. For 2 weeks straight, yeah. What did you have in mind? That's when I suggested the restaurant plan. The idea of having them both exposed publicly, in front of each other and complete strangers, where they couldn't control the narrative or make excuses. Joyce liked it immediately. When? She asked. Next Wednesday. I'll tell my wife I have a work dinner. You arrange to follow Theodore somehow. Find out where he's going. He'll probably tell you he's working late or meeting clients. And you'll actually be with me. Exactly. We have dinner, compare final notes. Make sure we're both ready to move forward with divorces. And then she shows up and realizes exactly what's happening. Joyce nodded slowly. He's going to lose his mind when he finds out. Good. They both should. We spent another hour going over details, exchanging evidence, making sure we both had everything documented properly. By the time we left that coffee shop, we had a plan, a timeline, and most importantly, we had each other's backs. The next 2 weeks were the hardest. Going home every day, acting like everything was normal, pretending I didn't know what was happening every time she said she was going out. But I kept my focus on the end goal. On that Wednesday night at the Brazilian steakhouse, when everything would finally come out in the open, my wife noticed I was quieter than usual, asked if something was wrong a few times. I blamed it on stress at work, said I had a big project coming up. She seemed to accept that, though I caught her watching me sometimes with a confused expression, like she couldn't figure out if I actually knew something or if she was just paranoid. The Tuesday before our planned confrontation, I finalized everything with the lawyer. Papers were drawn up, ready to be served. Bank accounts were separated legally. I changed passwords on all my personal accounts, moved important documents to a safe place. Wednesday morning, I woke up feeling strangely calm. This was it. Tonight, everything changed. My wife kissed me goodbye before leaving for work, told me she loved me. I said it back, knowing it would probably be the last time I ever said those words to her. That evening, I texted her that I'd be home late, had a work dinner that I couldn't get out of. She responded with an understanding message, said she'd probably just watch some television and go to bed early. Instead, I drove to the Brazilian steakhouse, met Joyce in the parking area, and we walked in together to set the stage for what was about to become the most memorable dinner either of us would ever have. The coffee shop where Joyce and I first met became our unofficial headquarters over the next 2 weeks. We'd meet there every few days, usually during lunch breaks or early evenings when our spouses thought we were busy with work or errands. Our second meeting was 3 days after the first. Joyce had spent those 72 hours going through Theodore's phone records, credit card statements, even the mileage on his car. She showed up with a folder full of printed documents, her jaw set with determination. I found the hotel they've been using, she said, sliding a credit card statement across the table. Same place. every other Friday for the past 3 months. $200 a night. I looked at the charges, feeling that familiar surge of anger mixed with vindication. More evidence. More proof that this wasn't some misunderstanding or brief mistake. I've got the messages backed up on 3 different cloud accounts now, I told her, including ones where they're planning their next meetup. This Friday, actually. Joyce's expression hardened. Of course it is. He told me he has to work late on a shipping manifest issue. My wife said she's going to help Scarlett move some furniture. We sat in silence for a moment, both of us processing the layers of deception. It wasn't just the cheating itself, it was the elaborate construction of lies that made it possible. Every fake excuse, every manufactured story, every time they looked us in the eye and lied without hesitation. You know what makes me angriest? Joyce said, stirring her coffee absently. It's not even the affair itself. It's how stupid they must think we are. Like we'd never figure it out, like we'd just keep believing whatever they told us. I nodded. That was exactly it. The disrespect wasn't just in the cheating, it was in the assumption that we were too naive or trusting to ever catch on. How long have you been married? I asked. 15 years. We've got 2 kids, 12 and 9. He's been their father, my partner, my best friend for all that time. Or at least I thought he was. She looked up at me. You? 7 years. No kids, thankfully. Makes the legal side cleaner, at least. I keep thinking about my kids finding out. That's what kills me. They worship their father. This is going to devastate them. That's on him, not you. He made these choices knowing what he was risking. She nodded, but I could see the pain behind her eyes. This wasn't just about betrayal between spouses. It was about a family being torn apart. Over the next week, we built our case like we were preparing for trial. Joyce discovered that Theodore had been lying about business trips too. A supposed 3-day conference in Denver? He'd been 2 hours away at a lakeside cabin with my wife. I found receipts for jewelry I'd never seen, gifts that clearly weren't for me. He bought her a bracelet, Joyce said during one of our meetings, showing me a charge for $300 at a jewelry store. $300, and he told me we couldn't afford to fix the dishwasher. The financial betrayal added another layer to everything. It wasn't just emotional cheating, it was taking money from their families to fund the affair. Money that should have gone to household expenses, to their kids, to building a future together. I showed her messages where my wife complained about our apartment being too small, about wanting to save for a house. Meanwhile, she was spending money on hotel rooms and expensive dinners with Theodore. They're selfish, Joyce said bluntly. That's what this comes down to. They wanted what they wanted, and they didn't care who got hurt. Agreed. We started planning the restaurant confrontation in detail. I suggested Brazilian steakhouse because it was public enough that they couldn't make too much of a scene, but intimate enough that the impact would be felt. Joyce liked the idea of the timing, catching my wife off guard while she was already emotional and defensive. What about Theodore? I asked. How do we make sure he finds out at the same time? Joyce smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. I'm going to tell him that night. After your wife leaves the restaurant, I'm driving straight home. He should be there by then if he's following his usual pattern. And I'm going to confront him with everything, all at once, with you on speakerphone as a witness if needed. You want me there? Not physically, but on the phone, yes. So he can't lie about what happened or try to gaslight me. You can confirm everything, the messages, the timeline, all of it. It was a solid plan, coordinated, strategic, and designed to leave no room for manipulation or excuses. During one of our meetings, Joyce asked me something I'd been wondering about too. Are you angry at me? For what Theodore did with your wife? I thought about it. No, you didn't do anything wrong. You're a victim in this just like I am. I keep thinking I should have seen it sooner. Should have questioned more, pushed back harder when things didn't add up. That's not on you. They're the ones who lied. We trusted our spouses because that's what you're supposed to do in a marriage. She smiled sadly. I guess we both learned that lesson the hard way. As Wednesday approached, I could feel the tension building. My wife was acting strange, more affectionate than usual, like she sensed something was off but couldn't figure out what. She kept asking if I was sure everything was okay, if there was something I wanted to talk about. I kept my answers vague, non-committal. Let her wonder. Let her stress about what might be coming. Tuesday night, the evening before our planned confrontation, my wife suggested we watch a movie together. We sat on the couch, her leaning against me like nothing was wrong, like she wasn't actively destroying our marriage. I love you. she said during a quiet moment in the film. I looked down at her, this person I'd built a life with, and felt nothing but disappointment. I know, I said, because I couldn't bring myself to say it back. She noticed. I saw her expression flicker with concern, but she didn't push it. Maybe she was afraid of what she'd find if she dug too deep. Wednesday morning felt surreal. I got up, went through my normal routine, kissed her goodbye like I always did. She had no idea that by the end of the day, our marriage would be effectively over. I met with my lawyer one final time during lunch, signed the last few documents, confirmed that everything was ready to be filed. He asked if I was sure about the timing, about doing it so publicly. I'm sure, I told him. She needs to understand that this isn't something we're going to negotiate or discuss. It's done. That afternoon at work dragged on forever. I kept checking the clock, watching the hours tick by until I could leave and set everything in motion. My coworkers must have noticed I was distracted, but no one said anything. At 5:30, I left the office and drove to the Brazilian steakhouse. Joyce was already in the parking area, sitting in her car. When she saw me, she got out, and we walked in together. "Are you ready for this?" she asked. "As ready as I'll ever be. My phone's charged and ready. As soon as your wife leaves, I'm heading home to deal with Theodore." We got our table, ordered our food, and started going over the final details. The plan was simple. Have a normal dinner, wait for my wife to show up, which Joyce had ensured would happen by sending an anonymous tip to one of my wife's friends about seeing me at the restaurant with another woman, and then drop the bomb. Joyce had set it up perfectly. She'd contacted one of my wife's work friends through a fake social media account, sent a message saying she'd seen me at a restaurant with a woman, even included the address. She'd done it an hour before we arrived, giving just enough time for the message to reach my wife and for her to rush over. "What if she doesn't come?" I asked. Joyce shook her head. "She'll come. Trust me. No one gets a message like that and doesn't immediately rush to check." She was right. 40 minutes into our dinner, there she was, storming through the entrance with fury written all over her face. Everything that happened next, the confrontation, the revelations, the public humiliation, it all went exactly as planned. Maybe even better than planned, because the look on my wife's face when she realized she'd been caught, that I'd known for weeks and had been planning this, it was everything I'd hoped for. When she finally ran out of the restaurant, Joyce and I sat there for a moment in the aftermath. "That was intense," she said, her hand still shaking slightly. "Yeah, but necessary. I need to go. Theodore should be home in about 30 minutes. I want to be there waiting. Call me if you need anything, or if you just need someone to talk to after." She nodded, gathering her things. "Thank you for all of this, for finding me, for having the courage to do something about it." "Same to you." We left the restaurant together, and I watched her drive off before getting in my own car. My phone buzzed with messages from my wife, probably a dozen of them already, ranging from angry to desperate to pleading. I didn't read them. Not yet. I needed to get home first, needed to be ready for whatever came next. The drive back to the apartment felt longer than usual. My mind was racing through all the possible scenarios. She might be there already, waiting for me. She might show up in the middle of the night. She might try to get her family or friends involved. But I was ready for all of it. I had the evidence, I had the lawyer, and most importantly, I had the certainty that I was doing the right thing. When I pulled into the parking garage, I sat in my car for a moment, taking a deep breath. This was it. The beginning of the end, or maybe the end of the beginning. Either way, there was no going back now. I got out, locked the car, and headed up to the apartment. My phone kept buzzing with more messages. I silenced it and put it in my pocket. Whatever happened next, I was ready. I walked into the apartment, and she was already there, pacing in the living room like a caged animal. Her eyes were red, mascara smeared down her cheeks. "How could you do that to me?" she started immediately. "Humiliating me in front of all those people?" I set my keys on the counter, keeping my voice level. "I humiliated you? That's interesting. You set me up. You planned that whole thing with that woman. Her name is Joyce, Theodore's wife. You remember Theodore, right? The guy you've been sleeping with for 4 months." She flinched at the directness. "It wasn't like that." "Really? Because I've got about 300 messages that say otherwise, including the ones where you complained about me, about our life together, about how trapped you felt." "You went through my laptop?" "I did. 3 weeks ago. Found everything. The messages, the photos, the hotel receipts. All of it." She opened her mouth, then closed it. The defensive anger was cracking, giving way to panic. We can work through this. Couples get past this kind of thing all the time. No. What? No. We're not working through anything. The divorce papers will be served tomorrow morning. I've already talked to a lawyer, separated our accounts, documented everything. This is happening. She started crying harder. You can't just throw away 7 years over a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. Mistakes are accidents. This was a choice you made repeatedly, every single day, for months. You looked me in the eye and lied constantly. I'm sorry. I'll end it. I'll do whatever you want. We can go to counseling. Stop. I held up a hand. I don't want your apologies. I don't want to hear excuses. I want you out of this apartment by Sunday. Where am I supposed to go? Call your sister. Call your parents. That's not my concern anymore. Her expression shifted to anger again. You're really going to be this cold? After everything we've been through together? You made your choice. I'm making mine. The difference is, I'm not lying about it. She stood there, trembling with rage and desperation, tears still flowing. I hate you. Good. That'll make the divorce easier. I walked past her toward the bedroom. I'm going to sleep. You can stay tonight, but I want you gone by the time I get home from work tomorrow. Take whatever's yours. Leave your key on the counter. This is insane. I turned back one last time. No. Insane would be staying with someone who had so little respect for me that she could lie to my face every single day. I'm just finally thinking clearly. I closed the bedroom door behind me, locked it, and sat on the edge of the bed. My phone buzzed with a text from Joyce. Told Theodore everything. He tried to deny it at first. Then he cried. Then he got angry. I'm staying at my sister's tonight with the kids. How did it go with your wife? I typed back. About as expected. She's leaving tomorrow. Thanks for everything. Thank you. We both deserved better. I set the phone down and lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. From the living room, I could hear her crying, making phone calls, the sounds of someone's world falling apart. But for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. The next 2 weeks were a blur of legal paperwork and cold silence. My wife moved out that Friday, showing up with her sister to collect her things while I was at work. She left the key on the counter as instructed. Joyce kept me updated through occasional texts. Theodore had tried the same approach my wife did. Denial, then anger, then desperate apologies. Joyce wasn't having any of it. She'd filed for divorce within 3 days, and her lawyer was pushing hard on infidelity grounds. He's already trying to paint himself as the victim. She texted me one afternoon, telling people I'm being unreasonable. His own mother called me yesterday, asking me to reconsider. What did you tell her? I sent her screenshots of the messages. She hasn't called back. My wife tried reaching out multiple times. Phone calls I didn't answer. Texts I didn't read. She even showed up at my workplace once, but security escorted her out when I told them I didn't want to see her. Her friends started calling me too, saying she was devastated, that she'd made a terrible mistake, that I should at least talk to her. I told them the same thing I told everyone. She made her choice, and I made mine. What surprised me was how quickly people turned on her once the truth came out. Her own family went quiet after I shared the evidence with her parents. Her father actually called to apologize to me, said he'd raised her better than that. Theodore didn't fare much better. Joyce told me his company found out about the affair when someone from the restaurant recognized him and mentioned it to a mutual acquaintance. Apparently, company policy frowned on affairs between employees and clients, and my wife's company had contracts with his. He got demoted. Karma, Joyce said when she told me. He's losing his wife, his kids' respect, and now his career trajectory. All for what? 3 weeks after the restaurant incident, I ran into Scarlett at a pharmacy. She was the friend my wife had supposedly been spending time with, the alibi for half the lies. I didn't know, she said immediately. She told me she was working on her marriage, going to therapy with you. I had no idea she was seeing someone else. Did you cover for her? Once. She asked me to confirm she'd been at my place one night if you asked. She said you were being paranoid and jealous. I believed her. Well, now you know. Scarlett looked genuinely sorry. For what it's worth, she's not doing well. Lost her job last week. Something about inappropriate conduct with a business associate. I didn't feel satisfied hearing that. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt tired. My lawyer called that Friday with good news. The divorce was moving faster than expected. No assets to divide, no children, and the evidence made everything straightforward. We'd be officially done within 8 weeks. She's not contesting anything. I asked. No. Her lawyer advised her not to. The messages you provided make it impossible for her to argue for anything. Joyce and I met for coffee one last time before her own divorce proceedings got too complicated. She looked better than the last time I'd seen her, more composed, less exhausted. Theodore's been asking his friends to talk to me, she said, trying to get them to convince me to give him another chance. I blocked most of them. How are your kids handling it? Honestly, better than I expected. They're angry at him, but they're adapting. Kids are resilient. That's good. What about you? How are you doing? I thought about it. Better. Some days are harder than others, but I'm better. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. We did the right thing. Both of us. I know. We said goodbye that day, knowing we probably wouldn't stay in touch. We'd served our purpose in each other's lives. Two people who helped each other through the worst moment of their marriages. As I drove home, I felt lighter than I had in months. The anger was fading, replaced by something calmer. Acceptance, maybe, or just exhaustion. Either way, I was moving forward. 3 months later, I sat in my lawyer's office signing the final papers. The judge had approved everything. 7 years of marriage reduced to a stack of documents with official stamps. That's it, my lawyer said, sliding the copies across his desk. You're officially divorced. I walked out into the afternoon sun feeling strange. Not happy, not sad. Just free. The apartment felt different now. I'd rearranged furniture, gotten rid of things that reminded me of her, made the space mine again. Work kept me busy. I'd taken on extra projects, stayed late some nights just because I could. My phone buzzed 2 weeks after the divorce finalized. A long message from my ex-wife. Paragraphs of apologies, explanations about therapy she was attending, questions about whether we could ever be friends. I read it twice. She sounded genuine, maybe even changed. But it didn't matter anymore. I typed back, I hope you find what you're looking for. I hope therapy helps. But there's no friendship here. What happened can't be undone, and I've moved on. I wish you well, but from a distance. Please don't contact me again. I hit send, then blocked her number, deleted her contact information, removed her from every social media platform. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in months. I made coffee, sat on my balcony, and watched the city wake up around me. My phone stayed quiet. No desperate messages, no manipulation, no drama. Just peace. A week later, I was organizing my closet when I found an old photo of us from our wedding. We looked happy, young, full of hope for the future. I stared at it for a moment, remembering that version of myself who believed in forever. Then I threw it away. That evening, I met some friends for dinner. We talked about work, sports, upcoming plans. Normal conversation with normal people who weren't lying or hiding anything. It felt good. One of them asked if I was dating yet. Not yet, I said, but I'm open to it. When the right person comes along. You seem good, he said. Different than a few months ago. I feel good. Better than I have in a long time. And I meant it. The divorce had hurt. The betrayal had cut deep. But I'd survived it. More than that, I'd learned what I wouldn't tolerate, what I deserved, and what real respect looked like. I drove home that night with the windows down, music playing, feeling genuinely content with where my life was heading. My ex-wife's chapter was closed. Permanently. No sequel, no second chances, no what-ifs. I'd moved on, and I wasn't looking back.